I am Selin Demirici from McDonald's, and it's my pleasure to host what I think is one of the most genuinely useful sessions of the day. First, I'd like to thank to our headline sponsor, Gleeds, for their incredible support of the stage throughout the day, and to Design and Build UK for hosting a truly outstanding program. And a very special thank you to our panel sponsor for this session, Cree Concrete, for making this clinic possible. Now, I understand it's after lunchtime, so I see some sleepy faces around there, but please be attentive, because this is not a panel where we talk about sustainability in general. You have enough of these today in other panels. This is a clinic. And like any good clinic, it only works if you actually bring your problems. We have 4 of the most knowledgeable people in sustainable construction sitting on this stage right now. They are not here to deliver keynotes. They are here to solve your problems. Your problems live on stage. So please be attentive. Make your phones ready because you will be submitting your questions live. But before we start, I'd like to introduce our brilliant panelists here. And first, I'd like to start with Emma Fletcher. Emma is Low Carbon Housing Director at Octopus Energy, specializing in sustainable housing, regeneration, and energy innovation. Would you like to introduce yourself, Emma? Do we have that on? Our mic is not on?
Sorry, turned it on. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Emma Fletcher. I'm a surveyor by background, and I've worked in the housing industry for about 25 years. And I, 3 years ago, moved into the energy world at Octopus Energy to be the translation between housing associations, housing, and energy. So I'm out here to listen to people's problems, see if we can take them away, see if we can solve them, and maybe we could invent or co-invent the new big thing for sustainability in housing.
Thanks, Emma. And we have here John Kennedy, with more than 20 years of experience in sustainability and carbon management across construction, transport, agriculture, and manufacturing sectors. John currently serves as Group Sustainability Manager at Cree Concrete Products. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for turning up. I coined the phrase ESG, not environmental social governance, but economic sustainable growth. So my career has been built around how do we, and any company I work for, add value to the bottom line of the business. So that's where the ESG converted to economic sustainable growth, and that plays across all fields of sustainability. I've been counting carbon for a very long time on a global basis for the largest food company in the world, and I've made some very significant inroads. And the great news for the construction sector, which I've only been in 3 years, the opportunities you have are enormous, totally enormous. So, thank you.
Thank you. Hope Lovelady is an associate consultant and health decarbonization lead at McDonald's, specializing in sustainable healthcare infrastructure and net zero strategy.
Hi, so I've been at MOTS for about 11 years. So my background's actually in mechanical building services engineering. So for most people, I'm that pin in the backside MEP engineer trying to make people do energy and carbon along the side. So over the past few years, I've specialized within healthcare. So I sit as an SME advisor into the new hospital program, but I also work with NHS England, NHS Wales, and the Health Service Exec in Ireland, looking at how we do net zero carbon in a manageable way across our healthcare estates. The nice new shiny buildings are great, but we've got a lot of existing stock that are going to cause us a lot of challenges moving forwards, and that's the more fun bit to play in this area.
Thank you. And we have Maria Gkonou is a sustainability manager at Waits Group, providing technical sustainability advice and strategic guidance across the full project lifecycle.
Hi everyone, I'm Maria. I work for the last 2 years at Waits Group, mainly with project teams, from the bid stage till project construction and handover. A lot of my work focuses on carbon and on sustainability assessments like BREEAM, dealing with many different problems like many of us in sustainability. And yeah, I look forward to the panel today. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our brilliant group of experts here. So, now here's how it works. You have a QR code in your program where you're sitting. Please scan it now. And add your sustainability challenges as a founder of SME, as an individual. Whatever problems you're facing in your industry, please add your questions. They will come up live on screen and we will tackle them one by one in real time. So, do we have it here? Yes. And of course, if you rather just put your hand up, that would do too, whichever is easy for you. So what kind of questions you may ask? What kind of questions? So these would range from the implementation of sustainability or the gap between the ambition and action. How much actually are we doing as a sustainability professional across the industry? Are we managing the gap between action and ambition? And how much are we doing? Is it enough to tackle the sustainability issues? And we have so many science-based targets currently for 2030, 2040, 2050. Is it enough? Today we're going to tackle real-world challenges with you. So, this is a live reactive session, as I said. Keep the problems flowing as we go. So, as a start, I'll kick with this question. So, which sustainability challenge is currently hardest for your organization to tackle? We got 17 responses now, and there is an interesting picture there. If you can see from here, half of the audience actually say behavioral change across teams, which is great because we will be unpacking behavioral change a lot today. And almost the other half says cost and commercial pressures, which I believe you can relate a lot to cost and commercial issues. And there is a bit of measuring and reporting impact, reporting issues there as well. Sustainable materials and procurement, we have not got any answers. So let's start with cost and commercial pressures. As sustainability professionals here, how much do you think there is a pressure on cost and commercial problems? We can start with Emma.
So I think there's the perception of cost,
Yeah.
and the reality of cost, and the fact that actually the supply chain isn't reflecting some of the decrease in sustainability cost measures. An on-roof solar panel now is about 48 quid, and an in-roof panel is 80 quid, including the tray. But yet we're seeing quotes of £250, £300 for actually a worse performing panel. So I think it's actually getting cost consultants much up to speed quicker and actually what the cost of this stuff is in the market, but it is coming down significantly. Same with batteries, same with cars, and I think we've got to catch up in order that things that look too expensive now can be the commercial reality. A roof of solar, in-roof solar on brand new homes is potentially cheaper than an existing roof. You have one contractor on site going up there doing the roof, they do the ridge tiles, the edge tiles, one set of scaffold, you're watertight quicker. There is value in doing stuff if you think about it in the right way.
No, indeed, definitely. But do you think we have sufficient constructors that are enabling that PV construction in majority in the residential sector? Maybe that's the problem, John. What do you think?
Well, first of all,
yeah, exactly.
I mean, first of all, for PV, you can get them anywhere, everywhere. The quality, the reliability of the suppliers is a different question. But I mean, yes, I think to go back to the red section, the cost and the commercial impact, everyone in the country can be net zero this year. However, there's a cost. So you have to consider what's the cost, the pounds, but also something worth considering is what's the future cost of doing nothing. I think the UK have been leading the Western world quite well, although the price of energy is reflecting that. So everything here, these problems are all achievable. Reporting is achievable. You can do it with third party, or you can do it in house, and it's not expensive. The procurement piece is simple if you look at what government PPAN 2026, I think it is. So they have written in carbon budget into their procurement procedures. Danske Bank, one of the large banks, have recently said they consider all of their investments as Scope 3 emissions. So the banks are now moving in that direction also. So the choice in terms of do you do something or do you do nothing is going to be forced upon us whether we like it or not. So everything's achievable, but at what price? And what price does the consumer want to pay?
You
That's the question.
talked about some forcing there. Do you think there is any possibility to shift that perspective outside of forcing people to drive that change?
Humans will always take the shortcut. It's human behavior. Always take the shortcut, always take the easiest, cheapest route, because everyone wants to make some profit and have a great life. If you consider every company that was conceived and started by individuals didn't think about the social impact of what they were doing. But what they didn't realize often was the social impact of what they done. They created businesses which turned over millions, in most cases millions and billions, and they extended social impact for families to get work, buy cars, go on holidays, raise families. It's all wrapped in the actual entity of the business, as opposed to do we need to tell the world that we're doing this and doing that. If you take a step back and look at what the business has done for UK PLC and local communities, it's much deeper than most people understand. So government policy is the driver, and private money. Now the banks have jumped onto the wagon to influence change, and that will drive the economy to make everything more expensive for a while. But that's the direction of travel. Again, the question is, if you believe in climate change, the question is, what's the cost of not doing something?
Yeah, absolutely. And you talked about private, and I'd like to raise a question to Hope, actually. What do you think in the healthcare sector this behavioral change is looking? How is that looking? Do you think we have that shift in NHS?
I think it's starting to get there now. We've had a big challenge previously. Obviously, everyone's aware the NHS is a challenge financially. But some of the CDL regulations, where those balances sit on book and off book, have really sort of hampered some decarbonisation efforts that we've had across different sites. Obviously, we've had public sector funding. The PSDS scheme's now disappeared for now. Hopefully, it might come back. But that is going to lend towards having to find private investment and more energy performance contracts, and opening up that world of procurement to be able to shift the dial. Like, trusts can do controls, they can do all the right things, but ultimately they use so much energy. Unless there is some help around that cost, we are going to really struggle. So I think we'll see probably an uptake in private finance feeding into that development, hopefully, and potentially at a city scale as well, with heat networks coming through.
Interesting. Some big push towards private finance then. Maybe move on to the next question. So what would most accelerate sustainable change in construction? We already touched upon some bits in this, but the options are stronger regulation, client demand, which we talked about, better technology and innovation, industry-wide collaboration. This is an interesting one, industry-wide collaboration. I think it's a very good panel to have that discussion today, because we have panelists from various industries. We only have 5 responses here. Okay, so majority of the people responded with industry-wide collaboration, which is interesting when you think about it, because all the panels, all the events going on in the UK about construction and sustainability revolving around industry-wide collaboration and how we can make this change a lot more sufficient for all of us. And there seems to be still a bit of struggle there. So, okay, client demand, I see. I still want to stick with industry-wide collaboration. So despite having all these conversations, there seems to be a gap. People don't seem to be believing that there is a collaboration, strong collaboration that actually takes us to our goals. So what do you think? What do you think about this industry-wide collaboration? Do you think that is not enough? And what we do in the industry, sustainability industry, in construction industry, do you think that's not enough? Emma, I saw you, yeah. I saw you sparking
So
that.
I'm going to reverse the question, because I'm not saying it's collaboration, but I think it's people. Who here in the audience has solar panels at home? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we've got an audience of, say, 25, 30 people. Hardly any of you have got solar panels. Have you got solar panels? You got solar panels? Have you got solar panels? No?
I don't know.
I have 14 solar panels. I also have a battery, electric vehicle, and a district heat network. But all I'm saying is, we've got to start living our values. We can't be here advising on this stuff. We can't be consultants saying, you have to do, we should do to you, we're doing this to you, if we're not willing to do it to our own homes. Now, I totally respect not everyone can do it to their own home, and I totally respect that money is a problem for a lot of people, but there are grants, there are loans, and if we're talking it, we're going to have to walk the walk, people, because otherwise we are not legitimate and we're not living by our values, and we're going to be called out by a whole new political wave. So if we believe in the future, we've got to live the future. And then once we've got it on our homes and we understand it, we can start talking about it, because it isn't scary, but it is new. And that's how I think we get partnerships. So controversial, but the evidence is showing it in the room that more of us need to adopt this technology at home first before we start trying to tell people they've got to do it at work.
No, thank you so much. We do need this controversial discussion, actually, because sustainability itself is a little bit politic, can be a bit heated, arguments here and there. So thank you so much. Maria?
Yeah, I agree. I think what happens is that many times you have construction is a people business, so you work with people every day, and sometimes people have their own views.
Yeah.
And this can block collaboration, whether it is us with a consultant, with a supply chain. I think we need very close conversations with people, and within a contractor side, we need to train people and to show them why it is important. For example, if you have PVs, then you are independent. You don't need to rely on uncertainty of energy prices. If we design a building and we build it and it's more efficient, our client is going to be more happy.
Yeah.
Because their operational expenses, they will be much lower. So I think, yeah, we are doing okay, but we need to do more. And it's very complex from a contractor's perspective. We have so many people involved. Our supply chain is huge. We need to have conversations one by one with our subcontractors and tell them why we are asking for this, why we are asking for carbon reduction, why we are asking about biodiversity. It's not only the weights commitments and the weight strategy, but it's so many other things. And I don't think we have a small subcontractor, they don't have the resources, so we need to be the ones to help them. And I have done this personally, and it changed everything. A company that they didn't know anything about their carbon, they had their carbon footprint after just telling them about some free resources and how they can what they can do to approach this. So it's complex. It's not easy. It's an industry that is not designing and building a product.
No.
We are speaking about building, so yeah.
And I think that's a very good point, asking why we're doing this. We're not only ticking boxes here. Just because we have science-based targets that we aim to hit, that's not the point of sustainability, right? We're talking about social value that it brings. And I think Emma made a great point there as well. As sustainability professionals, we need to be doing what we preach, basically. And maybe the gap we need to bridge starts from there. Right? Of course, please, please.
So I'm going to offer an alternative consideration. I don't disagree with renewables. However, I could install PV in my house. I'm a bachelor. For me, the payback would be about 18 years. So I'm looking at cost versus benefit. My carbon footprint is tiny. My history in decarbonisation is hundreds of thousands of tons of CO2 per year. So I can actually say I'm carbon negative. Let me finish. So imagine if we all take the opportunity and put local PV on our roofs, and we're enjoying the low cost electricity after the payback, and let's say 25, 50%, 75% of the country take up the opportunity, which is aspirational. What happens to the remainder of the electricity supply? Does the national grid disappear? It can't, because everyone needs backup. So how will the national grid be funded? Anyone? Sorry? Yeah, the customer pays. So if 75% of the customers have renewable electricity generated on their infrastructure, the transmission and distribution costs for everyone that uses the grid will have to escalate, or the grid will fail. So that's one consideration. While we will decarbonise, we will escalate the prices. We can all decarbonise. We do decarbonise our business, saving about 8,000 tonnes of carbon per year by purchasing a renewable certified green tariff. The same effect. In actual fact, one could argue that it's lower carbon because the operational carbon of insulation, deliveries, and etc. So that's one perspective. And then we have the opportunity from our domestic properties to export to the grid. Fantastic. So you're actually contributing to decarbonising the national grid. Until government decide we need to increase our revenue, because we've lost revenue from the taxation from the grid. So this year, Adelaide, South Australia, imposed an export tax from renewables onto the grid, which they were subsidising in 2017-18. So all of South Australia kicked off and went a bit crazy, but nothing changed. Everything they export to the grid, they pay a tax on. So whilst the decarbonisation project that we're on, net zero, will occur, we should be very mindful in terms of what's the best economic solution for individuals and commercial entities. So my vote will always be for commercial entities is to procure the certified green tariff, because the investment's displaced from the funding organisation. And we're doing that with our business right now. We're looking at 6 megawatts in a piece of land that we own. So that's an alternative, and I don't mean to, it's just an alternative perspective.
No, it's fine. I was about to say that's exactly where collaboration comes in, because your payback's probably closer to maybe 5 or 6 years tops, not 18 years. Things have moved on so dramatically. I haven't had an energy bill for the last 2 months with my solar and battery. My electric car is cheaper to run. But if we're going to have growth in this country, and we are seeing significant housing growth, we've got to give the grid a chance, and that involves us retrofitting our homes to bring down our energy bills and being more resilient locally. Otherwise, we can't all electrify. Totally taking your points about the grid, but we're all going to have to do something, and it's a little bit more than we're probably all doing at the moment. And every little bit counts, and therefore we can release enough in the grid to ensure our neighbours can electrify, to ensure that our neighbours have warm, comfortable homes, that we're all a little bit more resilient. So yes, you can take the big view, but things are going to have to change at a household level.
No? Okay.
We can move to the next one if you want. Yeah.
Emma, I got a question for you. Actually, what do you think would help more in that scene to drive that change in residential decarbonization and basically electrification of our homes? Because I don't think public is aware enough to make that change.
It's really challenging because 32% of all UK homes have a mortgage.
Right.
And the banks behind those mortgages have to decarbonise as part of their Paris climate change agreements. So they need your house to improve when they've lent against it. And some banks now or building societies won't lend to you if your home is in a floodplain.
Yeah.
So therefore, the banks need you to change, so therefore they've got incentives. The problem we've got is 95% of all mortgages are done through a broker. You possibly don't even know who your bank is, who your mortgage is with, and you probably certainly have never been to your mortgage company's website that says, hey, we've got a sustainability hub, hey, we've got £2,000 of free money for you. And actually Halifax at the moment say, well, they'll install a heat pump for free. So these things are all great, they're all there, but actually the way we communicate with people is through so many different channels now. Who do people trust? What do they do? When have they actually got time to think about this stuff? It's a big issue. And some of the data that's out there is out of date. And we need to show people this is actually what your actual return is. This is what you can do. And this is how you can fund it. And we as an industry need to get better. And that's both for clients who've got ESG targets and need to know about their commercial space, but to the individual home as well. But it's complicated. This stuff is not easy. And we need to make it smoother for the people, because certainly earlier adopters do like getting engaged with their technology. I am not one of those people. I just want it to work in the background. So we need to not let people be put off by the enthusiastic end of the spectrum. This is something that everybody can have in their home. And not once have I ever thought, how does my fridge freezer work, or my dishwasher, or my washing machine? I do not need to be explained how a air source heat pump works. I bought one. I assume it's going to work.
Absolutely, thank you. And in the meantime, our audience responded to a few questions here, and it's related to what we talked about here, reducing carbon emissions. Yes, we mainly talked about residential sector and in our homes, how we can tackle this. But by the looks of it, also in the industry, in commercial sector as well, reducing carbon emissions seem to be the most priority item in sustainability for the next 5 years. So, Hope, we talked about residential sector, we talked about our decarbonizing our homes. How do you think it's evolving in healthcare sector, and what do you think is the biggest challenge in healthcare? We talked about residential, it's now established, but what do you think it is in healthcare?
So within healthcare, it's largely driven by the NHS commitment to net zero. So they went quite ambitious.
But are we pushing it hard enough? What do you think? Getting
It's
there,
debatable. I think the challenge that we've got in health is, for so long as construction industry, we've focused on energy bills. Hospitals use a hell of a lot of energy. There's a lot of carbon that goes into it. We can decarbonise that. But when you look at the NHS as a healthcare system, your building energy is maybe 10% of the whole carbon footprint of the NHS, which then takes up 5% of the UK's carbon footprint. So actually that's where it gets into our models of care, medicines, even patient behaviours as well.
Everything,
so I think where previously we've pushed hard within the NHS along carbon, it's been so focused on the built estate, and now there's so many more opportunities within that wider sector that then feeds into how do we live in our residential homes? Do we do active travel? There's the much wider pieces that we can shift the dial on, rather than where we're getting caught up on funding challenges within decarbonisation and energy as well. So I think it's interesting to see that shift in focus from sort of the healthcare organisations really onto public health, how we can do that, and then that downstream impact that will benefit carbon emissions and how our hospitals are used. I think there's a lot of moving parts to it that could be pushed a bit more, but that's where we're seeing the drive move from the healthcare systems.
Over time, we will tackle that, do you think? Yeah. I agree. I'd like to push the audience a little bit more. I think it is time to submit a lot more questions. Just to remind everybody, this is a reactive session, so please get engaged as much as you can. Keep the problems flowing. We have a very good discussions going on here already. And I like to extend it with a question on embodied carbon and operational carbon, because we are talking about embodied carbon, and unfortunately the industry tends to focus on embodied carbon, right? Procurement and the materials, and we have whole life carbon analysis, of course, and we are looking at the end of life cycle as well. But when we're talking about behavioral change and operational carbon, how do you think we can reduce it more today? I'm not talking about 2040 targets, 2050 targets, but today, what can an individual person do in their work, in their homes to reduce that? Maybe that will be
from mine,
for you, yeah?
it's the simple things, and I guess it's the switch off campaigns that we all saw for so long a few years back. And it's probably more relevant now with energy prices, like within homes. A shameless plug, I am with Octopus, but I get reminders on certain days that there's saving sessions. So actually, do I need to use electricity during a certain hour? Not only do I save money because I'm not using the electricity, I then get a benefit through the account as well as the bonus on top of it. And I think it is the awareness piece. Thankfully, a lot of us are in a privileged position that we might not have to think about how much energy we use.
Yeah.
There will be a lot of the general public that aren't in that position. And sort of within the grid and resilience as well, it feeds into that of thinking, how do we use resources more effectively? And that's the quick, easy win now. If you turn a light off when you'd leave it on, you are saving energy, you're saving carbon. It's little bits, but if everyone's doing that, that adds up quite quickly.
Yeah, yeah. Indeed. Oh.
I mean, certainly now getting on the right tariff. So for commercial, we have an amazing tariff called Electric Match, where even if you're a tenant in a building, you can match your consumption to 2 of our solar farms and 1 of our wind turbine sites and do that in live time. So you match your consumption with the generation asset. That can bring your carbon down. We've got our fan club currently operating on 4 different wind turbines around the UK. So if you're in a postcode area, there's 1 in Wales, 2 in Yorkshire, and 1 off the coast in Scarborough. When it starts moving and going around, you get 20% off your energy bill. And when it's really going around, you get 50% off your energy bill. And you can engage with it, and there's WhatsApp groups, and it builds community, because everyone's like, put your washing on now, do it, do it, do it. And so it's really engaging in that energy system, but flexibility is the thing that will always win out. Using your electricity when it's cheap, storing it when it's cheap, using less when it's expensive. And then it's just that ability of being able to change. And I think actually people are starting to understand that, but you've just got to get yourself into a slightly different mentality. And then there's basic things like wheelie bins. I'm not sure probably anybody else can beat me. I've got 6 wheelie bins and due to get a 7th from the council. So I have three recycling wheelie bins. Full disclosure, I live in a rural area, so we get a lot of deliveries, so I have a lot of cardboard, okay? But also, you know, you got the green bin as well. You know, there's these little things you can do. You can ask for another wheelie bin. It's free in certain local authorities. So it's all those things do count. And just making decisions on what appliances you're buying next time round, all those other things. But for me, definitely, just making sure you're on the right tariff, whoever your energy provider happens to be, can really save you money. And that starts kickstarting your other thinking as well.
Yes, I agree. I was thinking about waste. But sometimes we don't think of waste, the waste we produce on a personal level. We just think the energy use of our home.
Yeah.
But all this amount of waste in our bins will travel somewhere. Then hopefully it's recycled. And this all results in carbon emissions. So there are changes we can do in our house to produce less waste. There are products out there that are not single plastic anymore. So I think it's little things like that on a personal level.
I would think it's worth crystallizing that there is a significant difference in energy use and decarbonisation. Anyone who wants to be economically enhanced should consider energy management, irrespective of whether it's green or not green. But if the objective is only to decarbonize, you can deploy PV, turbine, buy a green tariff,
Yeah.
or a few other technologies. But it's very important that the company or the individual determines, do I want to reduce my operating cost? Then I'm going to establish energy KPIs, or do I want to decarbonize? And if you're on a brown tariff, I think that's the correct term, is it? Brown tariff? Brown tariff, so non-green. So if you're on a non-green tariff, I think it's brown, and you establish energy KPIs, you will decarbonize. If you're on a green tariff and you establish energy KPIs, you won't decarbonize on the electrical side. On the thermal side, of course you will. So it's very important that anyone determining what they want to do is clear that there's a significant difference between energy KPI and a carbon KPI. So net zero is all about carbon. It doesn't care how much energy you use if that energy is green. So it's very important.
Thank you so much. You talked about the difference between energy KPI. So I'd like to see the conversation to Maria yourself, because it's actually related to one of the audience's questions here. So what's the biggest gap you see between achieving a BREEAM rating on paper and actually building performance in reality? So everybody's aware of that gap. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think BREEAM is more design focused.
Yeah.
So there's so many credits there that don't have to do with building performance. So we have only the energy section, which has to do with the Bruegel document. So again, it doesn't measure performance of the building once it's handed over to the client. What happens after that? I think there's no criticism to BREEAM because it was designed to cover so many aspects. If you want to look at building performance, then you need to go to neighbors, probably, and then you need to look at the UK Net Zero Carbon Building Standard, because these two schemes, they need 12 months of operational data. BREEAM has some credits on air tightness testing, thermal imaging, but this is like a very small percentage of all the schemes. So better go for neighbors or UK Net Zero Carbon Building Standard, as they're focused on energy performance, basically.
Indeed, thank you. In the meantime, I'm noticing there's so many questions coming in, so I'd like to speed it up a little just to make sure we have enough time to answer the majority of these questions. So clearly we have a lot of graduates in the audience, so I'd like to address their questions as well. So what will be your top tip for retaining graduates who are tempted to leave after getting their degree for a few, for a bit more salary, basically?
I mean, been there, considered it. So I am a graduate. Was a graduate when I started at Mott's. I've been there for 11 years. Anyone that's in the consultancy world will realise there's few and far between nowadays, because you can jump for a few more quid. I think it is really down to you as a person. If it's not getting you what you need from your company, if there's not the progression, I think in a way you have to be selfish. It's your career at the end of the day. And if the business that you're in isn't serving you, look at moving on. But I wouldn't necessarily jump for the most money. Really look at other consultancies, potentially moving into contractors that really align with your values and where you want to take your career. Hopefully what you would find of reaching out to people in industry is people are happy to chat about their experiences, even the challenges and problems with this. And I would just almost do your research, figure out where you want to be going, whether it's your short term for the next 2-3 years or that long-term view, but really consider it before you just jump for that big pay rise.
No, It's interesting because it's kind of aligning with what Emma was saying previously. We should be talking about our industry a lot more, and we should be practicing what we preach as well, because otherwise how are we going to encourage others to join our industry? Which is related to the next question here. Is there anything any recruitment agencies need to do to help encourage more people into the industry? And also, as sustainability professionals, what can we do to encourage more people? Because we definitely need more allies here. Maria, yourself, or Emma?
I think recently we went to a careers fair. Our social value manager is organizing lots of career opportunities and to speak with students. And sometimes when students, they're not graduates yet, but they approach us, they think that construction is basically only jobs relevant to the site. And what we try to explain to them, we have so many functions in the company that it's not only site-based professions, not only site managers or subcontractors, nothing. We have commercial teams. So why don't you tell someone who is going to study mathematics that they can be a quantity surveyor, for example?
Yeah.
Because they can do it very easily. They will get a good progression because we need QSs. We need very good QSs as well. They will get very good training, benefits. So I think we need to be a bit more like open-it and say, look, construction is not only on site. You can be studying maybe psychology and work in HR. We have colleagues that are working in HR with this background. So that would be my advice, that recruiters basically can tell that, well, there is a role there in a contractor or in a subcontractor, but it's not only for site teams.
No. Emma, you want to?
So, care for people. So, on the times I've had the opportunity to care for people I've had, number one, when people are starting a new job, give them some money to go and buy a new suit or the equipment they need or the tools they need. Number two, if they're leaving university or college and it's their first job, give them a bundle of toilet rolls, washing up liquid, all of the basic stuff they need to live that first month before they get their pay packet. They're in debt. They're struggling. They need to be looked after. And actually, the graduate problem, that's not a new problem. 6 months out before they graduate, start to think about talking to them, sit them down, have a review, think about the pay packet, because it will cost you more to recruit somebody else. Again, think about how do you promote them, how do you ensure that they feel good about graduating and staying with you. For very small amounts of money, you can show you care, and if you invest in people, they will stay because they feel it's the right thing. They start getting twitchy when they think they can't go on further, they're not being valued, but you don't have to always value purely in money terms.
Thank you so much. I'll have to stop you right there because I've been just told that our session is almost over. So before we close up, I want to ask one word takeaway from each of you from our session today about the gap between sustainability and implementation, or the decarbonization of our homes, or for the graduates. One word takeaway from each of you. What would that be?
Can I select one of you mentioned a few things.
You can select, I know.
I think for me...
Just one word.
One word?
One
okay.
word, couple of words, just to finish the session.
Training and upskilling of people
upskilling.
in the industry.
Upskilling.
Mine is resilience.
Resilience.
Resilience for your staff, resilience for your buildings, resilience for your home, resilience in whatever capacity that is.
Thank you. Hope, what do you think?
Passion.
Okay.
Tying into that, it's a big thing. There's so many directions you can take, but as long as you've got a passion for it, you will always find people that are willing to listen and give you the chance.
Yeah, I'll take that. Sean?
Be afraid of scope 3. Be very afraid. Scope 2 is being consulted on now. Be concerned. You'll have to report it, but be wary of scope 3.
Thank you so much. So we got upskilling, resilience, passion, and scope 3. All right. Thank you so much all. I hope you are leaving with more answers than you came in with. And if you have still some questions, please, all of our panelists will be still here. Please hang around and answer, and they will be answering your questions. And as a final, enormous thank you to Cree Concrete for sponsoring this session, to Gleans for sponsoring this stage throughout the day, and of course Design and Build UK for putting together something truly special. Thank you all for being here.